It began like so many small-town disputes, quiet and unassuming. My family's farm had stood for generations, its rows of golden crops rolling across acres of fertile soil. For decades, it had been a cornerstone of our community, a place where neighbors shared produce, children learned the value of hard work, and traditions were passed from one season to the next. I always believed it was untouchable. But I underestimated just how far a power-hungry HOA could go. The homeowners association that managed the new subdivision bordering my land had become notorious for overreach. They fined residents for grass length, banned pickup trucks in driveways, and even dictated the color of curtains. Their appetite for control seemed endless. But no one could have predicted their next move. The HOA board had been grumbling for months about traffic, claiming that local roads weren't sufficient for the modern, expanding community. Their solution wasn't a petition to the county or discussions with the town council. Instead, they decided, without permits, without consultation, and without any authority, to carve a small airstrip right through the heart of my farmland. I discovered it one morning as I walked to the edge of the field. Heavy equipment rumbled across the property, tearing furrows into the soil, flattening rows of corn that had been thriving only days earlier. Bright orange stakes marked out what would soon become their so-called private runway. It stretched straight through my property line, as if my family's land and heritage were simply obstacles to bulldoze. To the HOA, this was about prestige. They wanted their suburban enclave to boast of private flights, a perk they could flaunt to friends and colleagues. The fact that it destroyed farmland, violated countless laws, and endangered residents didn't matter. They saw themselves as untouchable, empowered by years of bullying homeowners into submission. But what they didn't know was who I was. For most, I was simply the quiet farmer tending his fields. What the HOA never bothered to learn was that I also happened to be the director of the Federal Aviation Administration. My job, quite literally, was to oversee and enforce the rules of aviation across the entire country. And if there's one thing I knew better than anyone, it's that building an unauthorized runway is no small infraction. It's a federal matter, and one that carries severe consequences. At first, I didn't reveal my hand. I wanted to see how brazen they would become. Within weeks, they had paved the strip, painted lines, and even erected a flimsy wooden control shack. Flyers were sent to residents boasting of exclusive private aviation access. The arrogance was breathtaking. And while homeowners nervously accepted it, terrified of being fined or ostracized, I quietly documented everything. I photographed the machinery, logged the contractors they had hired, and even gathered statements from residents who felt bullied into compliance. Every step they took deeper into this scheme, I was ready. The more they flaunted their new airstrip, the stronger my case became. It wasn't long before they tried to intimidate me directly. A letter appeared in my mailbox, stamped with the HOA seal. It accused me of obstructing community development and threatened fines if I interfered with infrastructure progress. They even demanded I cut down portions of my crops to accommodate safe landings. The sheer audacity was staggering. They thought they could find the FAA director into submission, as if my authority stopped at the edge of their subdivision. What they failed to understand was that their so-called runway wasn't just illegal, it was dangerous. It cut across residential streets, ended near power lines, and had no safety certifications whatsoever. The very first landing attempt could have been catastrophic. I chose my moment carefully. At the height of their arrogance, during a ribbon-cutting ceremony they had organized, I arrived quietly at the edge of the crowd. Homeowners stood in folding chairs, watching the board members boast about their innovation. A small aircraft had even been invited to perform the inaugural landing. It circled overhead, lining up for descent. That was when I stepped forward. With a calm authority, I presented my credentials. The crowd hushed instantly as they realized the man they had underestimated was not just a farmer, but the nation's top aviation regulator. I informed them, in no uncertain terms, that what they had built was not only unauthorized but constituted multiple federal violations. The airfield was being shut down immediately. The aircraft above was ordered to divert to a legitimate airport. And the HOA, along with every contractor involved, was now under investigation. The smug smiles of the board members vanished in seconds. Homeowners who had felt powerless for years finally saw the balance of power shift. The HOA wasn't untouchable anymore. They were reckless, exposed, and facing the full weight of federal law. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift. Federal inspectors swarmed the property, dismantling the makeshift airstrip. Contractors faced fines for unlicensed construction. The HOA board was served with legal notices, their prestige project now evidence in a case that could result in both financial ruin and criminal charges. Neighbors began to share their stories more openly, emboldened by the sight of justice. Years of intimidation, fines, and harassment poured out, all of it now part of a growing investigation. The HOA that once boasted of controlling every detail of community life now found itself under scrutiny for corruption and abuse of power. As for me, I returned to my fields, though the scars of bulldozers still marred the soil. It would take time to repair, but the land was resilient, and so was I. The crops would grow again, and the farm would continue, just as it always had. The story spread quickly beyond our small town. News outlets picked it up, marveling at the hubris of an HOA that thought it could build a runway and the irony of choosing the FAA director's farm as their target. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that greed and arrogance often sow the seeds of downfall. In the end, the HOA's runway never saw a single safe landing. Their dreams of prestige went up in smoke, undone by their own recklessness. And the lesson was clear: no one, not even the most overbearing HOA, is above the law. Because when you cross a line as brazen as carving a runway through someone's farm, you better be certain of who owns that land. And in this case, they picked the one person in the country who could bring the entire weight of federal aviation law crashing down upon them. The farm remained. The HOA did not. Do like, subscribe for more.